Good afternoon. It's really a beautiful day in the state of Washington. We have some good news, actually on a number of fronts. First off, we have good news that we are opening our schools for in-person instruction, and this is such good news for our students. We know that in-person instruction is the best way to do instruction. It's best for the teachers, it's best for the students, it's best for the parents. And we know that this can be done safely. And the great news today I can share with people is that we are increasing the number of days that our students can have in-person instruction. We already have over 200,000 students who are today receiving at least some significant in-person instruction. And that is increasing every single day. And the reason it is increasing every single day is that we are learning that we can do this with safety, and we are learning we can do this safely all over the state of Washington. We have over 175 schools that are already doing this. They are doing this safely, they are doing this efficiently, and they are doing this with a resounding confidence that this is the best way to educate our children, while at the same time giving parents an option to remain in a remote setting should they desire to remain in that kind of situation. This is tremendous news for our state. We know that educating kids is tough in general, and our educators have been doing a superhuman job remotely, trying to get the attention of second graders, trying to keep third graders on task. And they've been as creative as possible. But all over the state of Washington, we are now returning to the way we know best, which is in-person instruction. Now, why have we been able to do this? We have been led by excellent educators. Our educators have been sort of like Lewis and Clark. They have been the explorers, the ones that went back to classes in person, have shown us how to do this. They've shown us that when our kids and staff wear masks, where they socially distance, where they have decent attention to ventilation, that this can be done safely. And we ought to be thankful for the educators, not just teachers, but engineers, bus drivers, nutritional experts, counselors, parents, who have demonstrated the protocols necessary to make this safe. And we are thankful to them to show the way. And we are very happy that their colleagues now are looking at the experience that they have had, learning from their experience, and adopting those best practices in many places across the state of Washington. Now, we are not alone in this experience in the United States. It actually is becoming quite common. Last week, the Centers for Disease Control released updated school reopening guidance. And that guidance broadly aligns with what we are suggesting in the state of Washington. They basically have said unequivocally that if we have strong health and safety measures, returning to school is a safe thing to be able to be done if we pay attention to some of these safety protocols. And I think that the CDC, in effect, has confirmed what our educators have discovered, which is that this can be done safely. The CDC also made very clear that mass vaccination of our teachers is not a prerequisite to going back to school. And I look forward to when we have our essential workers, including teachers, grocery clerks, bus drivers, police and fire, childcare workers, all can get their vaccination. But what we have demonstrated and what the CDC has confirmed is that we can have on-site education in a safe and effective way. And this is really great news for all of us. We need to continue this movement in this effort because we still have thousands of students who have had a difficult time in remote learning despite the tremendous work of their educators. And we've been working with our local departments of health and our state Department of Health to share tools to be made available to schools so that they can have increasing confidence to return to school settings. So today, to that end, Today we are expanding the COVID testing assistance that we could provide to schools and school districts. This is part of our ongoing effort to give more students the option to return to in-person instruction. And it obviously increases access to testing, both for educators and students. The Department of Health has developed this testing pilot program during the last year, has been in place for 13 school districts, and it has become part of our playbook for returning our students to classes. So about 50 more school districts will now be participating in this volunteer program starting this month, and we hope these numbers will grow. It is not necessary to get back to school, but it's a way to help build confidence where educators, parents would like to have those confidence measures in place. So we're very happy about this. Finances should not be a problem here because, in part because of federal funding and in part because of state, our schools will shortly be receiving hundreds of millions of dollars that will be available for testing protocols and a variety of other needs of our school system. So this is yet another layer of confidence that we want to offer people to go back to Insight classes. Now, as part of this playbook, each district will also have the support of the Health Commons Project. This is a Washington State nonprofit that is committed to accelerating equitable education of our students. And they do an excellent job of working with local agencies to help with care services and delivering testing services where they're needed most. They do this by recruiting labor, making sure capital is available, although that should not be a problem, and accessing the best science and technology to fit the needs and the desires of the district to available testing. And they're going to lend their expertise to schools to provide a testing planner to school districts that participate in this program, to directly design a program for the schools that want them. Now, testing strategies are just part of our playbook. We're also helping school districts adapt to the rules that COVID controls that we have put in place as well. Based on federal guidance, as well as what we've learned through our local school district action, the state has developed what we're calling the Learn to Return Playbook. It's a public resource on how schools can get this job done. This playbook also includes health and safety requirements, of course, including universal masking, social distancing, and ventilation. And altogether, these things, I believe, will build confidence, as they already have, in our communities about in-person learning. And we know this, returning to school is not just important for our students' academic development. Schools provide nutrition and many other services that kids can't get at home. People from poorer and more rural communities struggle with remote access, and we know that despite our best efforts, that has remained the fact, whether it's because of lack of broadband or lack of support at home. Now, if these students can safely return to class, and the science says unequivocally that they can, we should, I believe, feel a sense of urgency to answer this paramount duty to our students. I know we all feel that. I know we have all the same desire. I know we've all had concerns about this pandemic. But now we have been armed with something very powerful, and that is knowledge and experience that we did not have a year ago. We have the knowledge of how to do this safely, and that knowledge has been given to us by our educators, our professionals, who have developed ways to do this safely in person, and we thank them for that guidance. I've seen this successful return to in-school programs throughout the state of Washington. As I said, there's over 175 school districts now doing this safely. I was at Elk Ridge Elementary School in Buckley 2 weeks ago. I wanted to tour Wenatchee High School last week, but we got caught in a snowstorm. But I did meet virtually with Wenatchee educators and staff and students and custodial staff last Friday. The photos you're seeing are from school districts that have returned to schools safely. That includes schools in Meridian, Moses Lake, Natchez Valley, Port Angeles, and White River. So we have demonstrated that this can be done throughout the state of Washington. It is being done throughout the state of Washington safely. To share a couple observations that I've heard, and I think my role here is just to provide information for people that they can use when they make their own decisions. A teacher I met at Elk Ridge Elementary, he actually, I believe, is a high school teacher. He told me that when his district was considering going back to in-person learning, he really didn't think that was a good idea. He just didn't think the problems could be surmounted. But then he went over and visited a high school in Yakima, and he saw how the mitigation measures were being implemented. And that gave him confidence, because basically what he said was, what I saw was, is if you go to a hybrid model, where you have only about half of your students in the classroom at a given time, you can spread out. You can do some cohorting. You can keep people separated. And students actually are remarkably adept at wearing masks. They've actually been very successful in this regard. So he returned to his school, and now he's been involved in the White River district very successfully with a high degree of confidence. So when I've talked to educators, I've heard, a recognition of why it's easier to do education in person. But I haven't heard anyone demonstrate how it is impossible to do that. And I'm just very heartened by that. And again, I want to thank educators for their leadership in this regard. We know that there's nothing with zero risk in this world. But we know that we now have the necessary tools to mitigate that risk. And I've been very impressed with the discipline that educators have shown and students. And we know that where people have had communication between educators and the staff, the people who have been solution-oriented have found a way forward. And it's taken a lot of listening to one another. And we're just very encouraged that that's going on across the state of Washington right now so that we can improve education of our students.